Hi there, my name is Raymond, and I'm going to quickly talk a little bit about how the enemies are set up in WarpThrough. So I made a previous video about the player characters, and those are all based on one base class, and then there's a bunch of child blueprints. In a lot of situations, it would make sense to make one big enemy base class, but in this case, I didn't. I wanted to make the enemies able to be new, fresh actors. In the way that I share functionality, because of course the enemies are able to do a bunch of similar things, I use a bunch of components. So I'm not going to talk about the physics, animation, and edge warping very much in here, because those are not unique to the enemies. Those are shared also with the player characters and some other stuff. But they have the enemy effects component, and then the other bit in which they share functionality is in an interface. So an interface allows me to just call functions on from whatever on whatever actor, and only if that actor actually has this interface it will do something. So that's really useful for when a player wants to try and damage something. It'll just call enemy take damage, and if that thing is in fact an enemy, then that enemy will take damage. So all of the ways that they take damage are implemented within the enemies themselves, but that can be that call is shared. So I can just call that on anything that I've determined to be an enemy, and then they'll be hit. So that way I was able to set up a bunch of these base enemies. So the ones I'm just selecting over here, these are the bouncy, jumpy, ghosty, and walk enemy. They are like the base 4 type enemies. These the bouncy 2 and 3, the ghosty 2 and 3, these are more dangerous variants that you encounter as you get further and further in the game. In a lot of for a couple of these, the walk enemy 2, for example, there's no added functionality. It's just a faster version of it. So here you see that the physics has changed a little bit. If I go to the first walk enemy and I check out the physics and how fast it can go, I can only go to 1500. The second walk enemy can go to 2500. So he's just faster. But there are some different things. For example, the jumpy enemy. The jumpy enemy 2 is actually kind of slower than the first jumpy enemy, so that would theoretically make him easier. But when he gets defeated, he will spawn kind of the earlier phase, the normal jumpy enemy. So that makes this one quite tricky. You've got to make sure that either you take it out and you sort of punch it in the right way that you take out the one it spawns as well, or you take it out and you run like hell to try and not get hit by the enemy that it spawns. So, as I've said, they also have this enemy effect component. And basically, so the enemy effect component and the enemy interface, that is how I can call any function on the enemies. And that is also how I can get a bunch of information from the enemies. So the enemies themselves have just set up the right variables for this particular enemy, and then that will be I'll be able to easily access that from wherever I want by just checking if they have this enemy effects component and getting the information from there. And if I want to call anything on them, then I can put that in here as well. So that allows me to easily make a bunch of new enemies, just make sure that all of that shared functionality can be used without requiring them all to be based on the same blueprint base class. So that is how that works.